Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Unskilled Commander Possibilities. Our three commanders on deck today are Talrand, Sky Summoner, the Reality Chip, and Daxos, Blessed by the Sun. Again, we've got a big group of monocolor, and it's white and blue, so blanket statement about the whole artifacts thing, blah, 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 you know. Got to worry about the mana base and all that. So let's see, first, Talrand, Sky Summoner. A 2/2 for 4, so that's not the best. Paying 4 mana just for a 2/2 is not a good idea. However, his ability kind of makes up for it. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. So right there, the deck kind of builds itself, as it were, because it's blue, so you definitely have access to really good sorceries and instants, and that's really all I would do. I would just load the deck up with low-cost instant and sorceries, ideally stuff that does help you in some way, like get you a card, maybe a buff, maybe counter spells are good too, of course. And then low to mid-range creatures in blue that, again, hopefully have effects that are maybe some buffs, maybe some, negatives to the opponent. Like when this creature comes in, tap down target opponent, whatever. But the goal for this would just be to, and of course you'd want a lot of card draw in this, so I would definitely focus heavy on the card draw as well. Try like 10, 15 cards that in some way give you card draw. Like ideally if it's like, oh, when this creature comes in, draw a card, I would count that. But also spells that are like pay a blue and X and draw X cards of, blah, blah, blah. Definitely focus on that, because what you want to do is you just want to dump your hand with instances and sorceries on your turn. And in fact, I would even try and do that on somebody's end step, right? Try and use that timing to your advantage. So leave the mana open for a counter spell maybe if you need it. And then when it's like, oh, I moved to my end step, cool, at the beginning of your end step, I tap like all, 7 of my mana and play these 5 instance spells, making 5 2/2 blue drakes, and then when it goes to your upkeep, they no longer have summoning sickness because at the beginning of your upkeep they were on your battlefield, so they don't have it. Boom, you can immediately swing with those 5 2/2s in the air, which is even better because they have flying. So yeah, it would just be about dumping your hand like at least 2 to 3 times, making a ton of 2/2 drakes along with whatever creatures you already can play and have out there, and just start swinging in the sky. Because 2/2s and 1/1s aren't that great, but as long as they have flying, they're going to most likely get through, and you have enough of them, it's a game win, or at least it's killing one person. You have, you get to mid-game, some things have gone off, maybe a board wipe here and there, and you're still able to, you have a Rhystic Study or something, you've been able to keep your card draw going. You drop you got 10 2/2s, that's swinging for 20, that's probably going to kill somebody. So that's how I would do that. This next one is weird, and I'm not sure. I picked it because it was interesting and unusual. So the Reality Chip. It's a 0/4 for 2, so it doesn't even have a power. So you're not going to get much commander damage off of it unless you buff it in some way. But you may look at the top card of your library at any time. As long as the Reality Chip is attached to a creature, you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. And reconfigure costs 3, which is the same as like equip cost, basically. You're reconfiguring the chip onto a creature. So you play it for 2, you reconfigure it for 3 onto something else, and now you can look at the top card of your library at any time, and you can play that spell for the most part. It's pseudo card draw, kind of, right? Because, you can, if you didn't draw a land on your draw step, but then you look at the top card and it is a land, cool, it's equipped, I can play that land. So that stops you from falling too far behind and maybe even gives you an advantage. Plus, like I said, if you flip a card and it's a really good spell and you have the mana for it, you can just play it straight from the deck instead of like waiting till next turn. But that's kind of it. Like it allows you access to the top of your deck. And so I think that's probably where the focus has to be. Things like, what is it, Sensei's Divining Top, where you mess with the top of your deck. You're like, oh, you draw cards, I think, and then you have to put a card from your hand, or no, you put Sensei's Divining Top back on top of your deck. So you get to draw a bunch of cards, but you have to put that on top. However, guess what? If you can look at the top card of any time and play it, and you have the mana, you can just immediately play Sensei's Divining Top again. And kind of chain it a little bit and do that kind of stuff. And I think that's where you need to do it. I know there's spells. I don't know if it's in blue. I think it might be blue or black or both or whatever, but it's like, I know my friend has a deck where it's like you take damage equal to the CMC, or sorry, mana value of the top card of the library. It's like you reveal your top card and your opponents take damage equal to its mana value. This would be a good commander to try and build a deck around that for. So it's like you're using Sensei's Divining Top to stack your deck a bit, well, get your cards rather, I guess, and then, other cards. I know there's a ton of cards that allow you to kind of stack the deck. You do that, and then because of Reality Chip, you can go ahead, it's on top, and you can see it and play it and do whatever. So that's kind of how I'd probably try and go about that, but that's definitely outside of my skill level and wheelhouse, so it would take a lot of time, a lot of comparisons online to like figure out the right cards for that kind of deck and how to play it. But that's what this show is about, is like figuring out commanders and which ones would be fun to play and which ones would be a challenge and a way to learn more about Magic. Finally, we have Daxos, Blessed of the Sun, a 2 asterisk where he is a demigod. Daxos' toughness is equal to your devotion to white, so that's the how many pips of white you see in all the cards that are permanents on your side of the field. So when he comes in, he becomes a 2/2, essentially. As long as you have some other white spells that are permanents on the field, like, Authority of the Consuls or whatever, that would get more pips, which means, the toughness would go up a bit. Whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, you gain 1 life. So that would be fun in terms of trying to figure out a way to make a ton of white tokens quickly, and maybe having a couple artifact sack outlets like the arenas. I think the effects Rexian arenas black, but whatever. There's Blasting Station or Blasting Zone or whatever, and a couple others that are just artifacts that you are able to sack. It says sacrifice a creature, gain 2 colorless mana, or sacrifice a creature and tap Blasting Station to deal 1 damage to target, whatever. Things like that. Now, of course, the tap ones are weaker because they tap, and then you can only use them once. So then it requires more cards that allow you to untap, so that's a whole other theme in there. But I think a lot of, like, creating 1/1, like, spirits, I think, in white are common and stuff like that, birds, whatever. Cards that let you just dump a bunch of creatures onto the field and then sack them, at instant speed would be, a double hit. Depending on the layout of the board state, it could be like, okay. Now, of course, they don't have haste, but you make 3 birds, right? They come into the battlefield, cool. You gain 3 life, and then you sack them, and you gain more life just immediately. Now you gain 6 life. So obviously, I was originally thinking it was hitting your opponents. Sorry about that, but still, it's a real fast way to gain a lot of life. If you can get any kind of, like, there's a ton of white and artifact cards that increase how much life you gain. And what, I can't remember, Alzheimer's Archive or whatever, what's like, whenever you gain life, you gain that much +1. And I know there's more white cards that say that, or creatures that say that in white. So you have your deck with those. So now creatures come in, you're gaining 2 life or 3 life or whatever. You have yourself a Aetherflux Reservoir, right? Which I've forgotten about the second part of that whole freaking thing in my one game that you guys have probably seen or will see. But, as long as you have 50 life, you pay 50 life and deal 50 damage. Now, you want 51 life so you can survive. But, yeah, if you're gaining life fast enough, and it's only a 2-drop just to get him out, so you can play him on turn 2 and start dumping in low-cost creatures and token generations. Boom, you gain life pretty quick as long as you can stop from taking damage. And then you got yourself 50 life at a relatively, 55 life relatively early on. You drop Aetherflux, you just blast whoever the threat is. Whoever's been hitting you, and it's like, nope, boom, 50 damage, you're dead. yes, you're down to 5 life, so you're an easy target. But if you have creatures out to block, and maybe you can have a Teferi's Protection since it's white, or those kind of fog spells in white or whatever, maybe some Pillow 40, Ghostly Prisons to lock the board down so you're not getting attacked, which will allow you the time to build your life up. I think that could be a fun build. Just really focus on the life gain. But what do you guys think? How would you play that? Would you do that in a different way? Would you, obviously you still want the life gain and you want that as a resource, but would you focus on some other aspect of it? How about Reality Chip? Do you think that's even worth trying for something like that? Or would you say that's more of a 99 than a commander? All right, let me know in the comments and I will see you next time.